Welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here on a beautiful day in Jerusalem on our rooftop studio. My guest today is Grace Rudnitsky, the Director of International Relations of the Ethiopian National Project. Grace, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Grace, tell us a little about what is the Ethiopian National Project.
The Ethiopian National Project is an amazing organization. It's a partnership between those who support Israel, between the Ethiopian Israeli community itself and the government of Israel, together bonded to make sure that the Ethiopian Jewish community in Israel is fully integrated and successful.
The story of the Ethiopian Jewish community is one of the biggest modern miracles of Israel's history. We found the Ethiopian people in Ethiopia completely cut off from Judaism, yet connected to Judaism. How is that possible?
They're totally remotely in the hills of the most remotest regions of Ethiopia, but still they succeeded in preserving their Jewish identity for over 2 millennia. The reason that they did this, they clung to the dream of Jerusalem, always dreaming of returning to the land of milk and honey. And that was what made them be able to continue with their hope and their vision and their dream of one day reaching the promised land. There are all sorts of stories about how the Ethiopian Jewish community came to be, whether it be the lost tribe of Dan, whether it be those who came with the Queen of Sheba back to the land of Cush to once again return to that land. But what we know is that for 2,500 years they succeeded in maintaining their Jewish identity.
The State of Israel is the only country to take Africans out of slavery and bring them into freedom, and not the other way around. We took the Ethiopian Jewish community from rural communities in Ethiopia and brought them into Israel. How hard was that to integrate them into Israeli society?
It's the most incredibly difficult task, and that task is still not done. 70% of Ethiopian Jewish adults are illiterate, even in their native Amharic. As farmers, as shepherds, they didn't have a need to read or write. So here you come to Israel, this fast-paced, modern, technological society, and these adults, the parents of children, are unable and unfamiliar enough to support their children, to enable them to succeed in Israel. So now the task truly begins to help the children, to help the adults fully understand and gain the skills that they need so that they can succeed in Israeli society, and that's what the Ethiopian National Project is doing.
One of the most amazing stories of the Ethiopian Jewry is that they were cut off from the rest of the people of Israel since the time of Queen Sheba. Yet when we found them, they had the same traditions, the same Torah, the same Bible. How were they able to preserve that over the last 2,000 years, completely cut off from the rest of the Jewish community?
They've meticulously maintained their Jewish identity for over 2,500 years. The same Torah that they used then is the Torah that they use now. In fact, the way that Ethiopian Jews were discovered or revealed to be Jews was that their villages in Ethiopia, in those remote places, were exactly as described in the Bible. You could see that there was a little hut set off from the rest of the huts, which was where pregnant women, after giving birth, would go with their newborn child. All these different indications that it was from the Bible, that they are truly the biblical Jews that are Ethiopian Jews today. The holidays that they celebrate, the same as they are mentioned in the Bible. Passover, Rosh Hashanah, all of the holidays. In fact, there's even a holiday that the Jewish community still celebrates, something called Sigd, which is mentioned in the book of Nehemiah, where they would go to a mountaintop and praise Jerusalem and pray towards Jerusalem, dreaming of the day that they would return to Jerusalem. And once the Ethiopian Jewish community did return to Jerusalem, they met actually right here behind us. And the elders met and came together and they said, now that we have returned to Jerusalem, shall we continue to celebrate and commemorate that holiday? And the decision was yes, we will use this as a holiday to celebrate Jerusalem.
You know, the last of the Ethiopian Jews were brought to Israel this year, but that just begins the work to get them now assimilated into Israeli culture and society. What are some of the things that need to be done now to get them, to get them to become Israelis?
I would actually take issue with that question. I would say that our goal is not to assimilate, but our goal is to integrate. It's such a beautiful culture. They have such beautiful traditions. Those traditions should be preserved. But what we need to do is to work with the community so they are able to, for instance, the children excel in school, the adults get jobs that will enable them to support their children. You know, the Ethiopian Israeli community has among the highest levels of poverty in Israel. 49% of Ethiopian Jewish children live under the poverty line. The Ethiopian National Project is taking action literally to combat precisely that challenge, combating poverty through education. EMP is providing after-school scholastic assistance to Ethiopian Israeli children in 28 cities throughout Israel, making sure that they have the support that they need, not just scholastic support, but also emotional and social and even nutritional support. These kids get a lunchtime meal through the Ethiopian National Project. That intensive scholastic support will enable these kids then to pass the exams so that they can get into college and get into university and enter Israel's middle and even upper class so that they can fully succeed and thrive in Israel. That's what we need to make sure that the community can do, and that's what we're doing today.
There are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
As you said before, the work is not done. We need to support these children to enable them to thrive in the Holy Land, to enable them to be fully contributing Israeli citizens. That's what the Ethiopian National Project is doing through our work in Israel. We encourage you, every single one of you, to get involved.
Thank you, Grace, for being on the show, and thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.